Do you live in the US and want fast, fresh and tasty meals without the hassle of shopping or all that hard work preparation? Well, don't you worry, as a lazy man, I've got you covered. Try America's #1 meal kit service, HelloFresh, and get yourself fresh, pre-portioned ingredients delivered direct to your door. So why not eat well, stay healthy, and avoid the cost of regular takeout by trying HelloFresh? Just click the link in the description below for a special limited time discount and free shipping as well. Enjoy. Well, today sees a slight change to the advertised schedule because I completely neglected the fact at the end of last season that we've reached the 10-year mark in this save. That means it's time for our second bookmark of the series where we look back at our progress, all of our former clubs, and of course, take a look at what's happening in world football. Yes, hello and welcome along to part 83 of the FM23 edition of the Head Coach with me, Daniel. We're back at the 10-year mark today, having finished our second season with Crystal Palace, and although it was comfortable survival in the end due to a poor Premier League relegation battle, we have got to look back at how far we've come in the previous 5 years of this save. Of course, our first bookmark, which I'll put in the eye above, look back at what was a struggle early in our career at Airbus in Wales, and of course then at Maidenhead too. We had not been out of the National League South when we came back at the 5-year mark. 5 years later, we've managed 2 Premier League seasons, and we've really developed in our career. So if you're looking forward to getting a quick reminder of how we got there and seeing of course how all our former clubs are getting on, then please do put a thumbs up on it. Of course, if all goes to plan, we might be on the move again this summer, but that's something to worry about in a couple of days' time. For now, we're going to go back over to our profile and see what's changed in the last few seasons. Because first things first, if we go over to my profile, we've now got a 3-star reputation. We're now studying for a Continental A licence and we're on 40 grand a week. There's the first difference. We're not got to worry about mortgages anymore. But let's go and have a look at the contract and of course my history. Because if we have a look at our overall career, it's not bad to be fair. We've got a 40% win rate overall, but that is dropping quickly at Crystal Palace. But we're at a higher level. We're managing a club with very little ambition, and we're really struggling to take them to the next level. And not going to get any easier this summer from what we've seen so far. If we have a look at our time overall, 2 leagues and 2 promotions, that is something we've got to be incredibly proud of. If we have a look at our overall career stats, they do look good. We get the big bash about defensive football. We average about a goal and a half a game, 702 goals in 465 matches. That's not awful when you consider that we've managed Airbus for 3 and this Palace side for 2. We've spent half of our seasons battling at the bottom of leagues, and as a result, we weren't expected to be great. Our overall record is not bad at all. We've still only spent the 5 days on holiday when looking for jobs at the start. Our total career earnings are very much ramping up now. And of course, our longest spell as a manager, 850 days at Airbus. Are we going to be able to top that here at Palace? If it goes to my plan, hopefully not. I like to be on the move this summer. The transfer values are creeping up now because of course there's lots of signings at Premier League level. If we have a look at our previous clubs, let's go and see what's been going on. Because of course our 2 trophies came with Maidenhead, who we won the National League South with, and with Bromley as well. I glossed over that horrible little stint at Peterborough Sports 2, which wasn't great. But let's go and look at all of our clubs in chronological order. So Airbus, we finished 10th most seasons. We just about kept them up. They were an unambitious club. But after that, they didn't really change much in the first 5 years. How are they getting on now? If we go to Airbus UK, they are still in the Welsh Premier Division. 9th place was their most recent finish, so not a bad effort. And you can see actually they did go down. So in 27-28 they got relegated. They've made it back up 2 years later. And they've just survived their first 2 seasons back up in the Welsh Premier League. So it shows what a good job we were doing to keep them up. They really struggled without us. And they did eventually get themselves relegated. The key player, he's better than anyone we had back in that day, to be fair. So definitely making progress again now. So Airbus not really going forward without us. They did get a relegation a few years after. The one that I'm worried about though is Peterborough Sports, because I'm pretty sure we got sacked in that very dark cloud in the 3rd or 4th season. I'm not going to go back over it. because of course we said we'd keep them up and avoid a battle against relegation. And although we only finished 2 places above the relegation zone, we were 10, 11, 12 points clear. In contrast to what we had with Palace, where we were adjudged to have avoided it, because we finished 3 places above the relegation zone last year, even though we were only 5 points clear and survived on the final day. But Peterborough Sports, they got relegated out of the playable leagues in Season 5, and they are still down there in the Southern Premier Central. Do you know what? I don't like to be a bitter man here, but serves you right. Let's have a look at where they are. Relegated in 26-27. They have returned in 20-30-31 for 1 season, and they went back down again. Serves you right. Kyle Hudlin is still there. Now, him I feel very sorry for. He's scoring bundles of goals. He's got a great record there. He must be a club legend, the amount of time he spent there. Still not had a better scoring season than the one he had under us. He came in and saved us that year. So 2 clubs so far, neither of them in a better position than when we left. If we go and have a look at Maidenhead, where we had a tricky first season but snuck into the playoffs, then a brilliant second year with a really good team. They went up to the National League. They struggled there. We saw that from afar when we were at Bromley. How have they got on since? They're still in the National League South. They're still competing near the top with Alex Gilby now as manager. We have a look at their general the last few years. So that's the year we took them up. They came back down and they've been up in that playoff mix ever since. So not doing too badly. Jed Ward is their best player and he's a decent goalkeeper. So I'd say they're about where we left them. Although, of course, technically, we did leave them in the National League. So 3 clubs, none of them in a better position than we left them now. I should just very quickly check, actually, that we haven't got any originals at these 3 clubs. Any of the players that we work with who might still be there. So I recognise a few of the ones that were bought in as 16-year-olds at Airbus who probably were never good enough to get an offer from elsewhere. But there's not many. I mean, the one that sticks out is that goalkeeper, Jacques Weisman. He was definitely there. I don't really recognise anyone else. I'm sure 1 or 2 of them were. If we go to Peterborough Sports, we know Carl Hudlin, of course. Anybody else about? No, he's the only one on a contract really now. A couple of other star players, but they're a bit younger. So Kyle Hudlin, the star of that show. And then Maidenhead, I'd expect them to have 1 or 2. I don't know if they will. Brad Wade in goal is 1. He's now their backup keeper. And then further down, I think that's it. I don't recognise any others. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing anyone, but I think that's it. So let's move on to Bromley, because we left them after getting promoted to the National League. A championship job was just too good to turn down. But they then got promoted from League 2 straight away. Have they managed to keep up in League 1? No, they haven't. They're back in League 2. Their captain and vice-captain are still players that were there when we were. But this is what happened to them. They went up under us. They went up the season after, by the playoffs in 7th, but still counts. They then got relegated from League 1, finished 14th in League 2, and now 12th this season as well. So they're back where we left them, but they have had a really good few years as a club. We had James Hilson. We had George Thomas. I'm looking further down. We know about Nicky Colkett up front. Oh, look who else they've signed. Not a player we've managed in this save, but those of you who followed the banger save back in FM21, the legendary Build a Nation save, Paul Glatzel, what a man, is now up front with Nicky Colkett. You've got to love it. Anyone else in midfield? Paul McIntyre still about. And I'm looking at the rest. Thomas Hill, I think, is the only other one. But a good side, a fair few players sticking around, and definitely a solid established Football League team now. With that done, we move on to the one big club we've managed in this career so far prior to Crystal Palace, and that is Ipswich Town. It was a remarkable step up at the time, really. But Ipswich were a club that gave us a chance, and we finished 16th the first year, 6th and lost in the playoffs the second year. But how have they done since? Well, not as well is the simple answer. The first season after we left, they finished in 20th place and didn't even make the 50-point mark. And then this season, back up to 11th, a little better. But they have not replicated that playoff season. Now, it might have been a one-off. That's why I felt we had to move on. But we did a really good job at Ipswich. And I don't feel, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's one of those little jobs that you have during a head coach season where you don't feel you get the credit you deserve, because it didn't look pretty. We weren't glorious most of the time, but we were really effective. And when you look back at it now, you say, actually, we did really well. The media predictions still bottom half. Still got a lot of the players we had there. It's only been a couple of years. George Hurst still their top scorer, 33. They've got to be looking to move on now. Paul Ferdinand is still there. He managed to stay fit this season. He's played every single game for them. He's done a really good job. He's their superstar, really. And most of the squad is familiar names because it's only been 2 years. But that's a problem in itself because they were aging a bit when we got there. And now it sort of shows that I was right to move on because a lot of these players haven't been taken to the next level and the club hasn't then progressed. But again, we're talking about former legends in this save. We go back to our Hemel save in FM22. Ricky J. Jones has joined Ipswich, so I would have enjoyed that one to say the least. But overall, we've made all the right decisions during our career. The problem is, we are now stuck at Crystal Palace, where we've had 2 very solid seasons to survive in 15th and 13th. Their second and third season back at Premier League level, and to be fair, I'm a little worried about this summer. We'll talk about why in the next episode if we're still here, but needless to say, it's going to be a bit of a difficult season, and probably the biggest challenge we've ever had if we're still here next year. We are wanted, we've had a few interviews, we'll talk about all of that in the next episode. But Crystal Palace, so far we've done well at. I'm a little bit concerned for what's to come though. With that out the way though, I would argue, bar Bromley possibly, we've not left any club in a worse position than they are now. Bromley, we don't know what would have happened in the Football League, but we left them in League 2 and they went on to exceed that. No other club has gone on to exceed what we achieved with them. So that is something we have to look back on positively, and hopefully in the future we can say the same thing. But definitely, bar that Ipswich move, our career has progressed a bit more slowly than it did in FM22. There's no doubt about that. The AI is more competitive. I think we've been at clubs that generally have struggled a bit more, and ones that haven't been willing to invest as much, which has caused us a few problems. But we're going to go over now and switch our attention to the footballing world. We're going to go through the English and the UK pyramid, see who are the runners and riders, any big shocks, anyone moving lots of divisions, and then of course we'll look at the European trophies and the international stage as well. Back in a minute to start with the Premier League. We start of course with the league that we've managed in the last 2 seasons. The top tier in England is pretty interesting actually. Chelsea and Arsenal have regularly fallen away from the top 4, albeit Chelsea won the Europa League this year. Newcastle have become regulars at the top, and Bournemouth have become a regular European football side with some of the best attacking talent in the world. So look out for them in the next few years and in the next update. If they don't all get poached, I think they'll be in really good nick. Haaland's just had his best season in this save with 44 league goals. He's outdone that in our blog save already, hasn't he? But overall, not too many shocks in here. Nottingham Forest, Leicester and Norwich, the 3 going down. It's only Watford really who are overachieving, and the less said about that, the better. We go down to the Championship. Leeds have come back via the playoffs with Luton Town. Look at that. My beloved Luton Town, 2nd place, and we'll be playing them in the Premier League next year. Sean Dyche has got them up. Still got Campbell and Bree, who were sold to Southampton in real life in January. I'm going to tell you this now, and it is the one time I will break the technical realism rule for what I would do in real life. If Luton sack Sean Dyche while they're in the Premier League, I am applying for that job. I do not care because I would want it in real life and I will take it in this one. Burnley and Leeds coming up is no surprise. Stoke, Sheffield Wednesday, Blackpool going down. Any big shocks in terms of teams in the Championship? I don't think there's anyone more than a division out there, is there? And just Ipswich in mid-table. Louis Barry, the top scorer in the division for Luton. Of course, the Aston Villa youngster in real life. And Malloy, another one who's scoring goals up front. So definitely look like an attacking team, don't they? And they've got Tony Springett. Where do I recognise that name from? Maybe Hibs a couple of years ago in the head coach. He's got the most assists in the division. Let's move down to League One because that one's going to be a little trickier, isn't it? If we go down to there, Burton Albion have beaten Plymouth in the final. Millwall and Wigan returning to the Championship. Birmingham, just like last year's head coach, really struggling. This time only down 2 divisions, but they'll be in League 2 next year. Wrexham are up in the top half of League 1. There's not many other big shocks though. A few League 2 teams that you wouldn't expect to have come up, like Colchester perhaps given their recent years in real life. But nothing huge, I wouldn't say. Preston and Huddersfield up in the top half. It's only Wrexham that have moved 2 divisions really, and Birmingham as of next year. We go down to League 2. We've got Notts County beating Tranmere in the final. They're up to League 1 now as well. Salford and Harrogate out of the Football League. And the rest of the division sees Bromley, of course. York, who have come back up to the Football League. MK Dons struggling in the middle of League 2. But again, there's no big shocks. I think the biggest surprise you've got in there is Boston United back in the Football League, who of course start in the National League North. So not quite as wild as some of the ones we saw last year. but good to see one club making a big break from the regional divisions. We go down to the National League. Have we got any shocks the other way? Good to see Boreham Wood coming up alongside Southend. Dagenham and Redbridge down to the National League South again. Always seem to struggle in this year's game. Northampton down in the bottom half of the National League. That's a little bit of a surprise. Guiseley are up there. Hopefully they'll continue to do well. And then you've got Scunthorpe, Wickham, top League One club to the bottom half of the National League. That's perhaps a surprise. And Port Vale down a couple of divisions too. So a few more clubs that have dropped off a little bit. We go down to the North and South. Are we going to get any shocks to finish? Barrow have lost in the playoff final of the North. They're down 2 divisions from League 2. There's no other big ones in there though. And if we go down to the South, the final one, we've got Oxford City winning the playoffs. Leyton Orient, wow. Top of League 2 in real life. Top of the National League South in FM. I mean, it looks like a one-year job. 117 points is not a slim margin to win it by. They have back-to-back relegations. 24th in League 2. And then they finished 21st in the National League. They've got youth player from Luton in the past, Akim Famiwo. Look at that level of player in the National League South. It's scandalous. But they're straight back up and they've won it at a canter. Any other surprises in there? Because I got a bit done by that one. Wealdstone have gone down. National League, they're now down 2 divisions. They'll be out of the playable leagues. But no massive shocks, more than 2 divisions. Probably Leyton Orient at the end, the most surprising, to be honest. Let's go and move on to the Cups then. The FA Cup is won by Manchester City. You can see Bournemouth have won it twice, which is what started their rise. Otherwise, it's been spread amongst the big boys. If we go down to the Carabao, 3 for City in a row after 2 in a row for Arsenal. Community Shield, City 3 in a row. EFL Trophy, even City's under-21s have turned up in that one. And in the FA Trophy, Northampton have won it. That is maybe the one solace they can take from their fall. And Woking, the club we managed in our Twitch save for so long, they were the team to lose out on penalties. But overall, English football looking okay. Not many big shocks, but a few moderate ones. Let's go and move on to the Scottish Pyramid, and then we'll get on to Europe. So let's start with the Scottish Prem. Well, of course, in the last episode, we did mention the fact that the Rangers job has popped up. Well, now the Celtic one has as well. So we'll be applying for both of those. Celtic have won it every year bar 29-30. It's been a dominant display from them. 21 points was the distance this year. So Celtic would be a good job to get, just to get yourself a few trophies. In terms of the top tier, great to see that Arbroath are still in there. They stayed up on goal difference from Ross County and obviously survived via the playoff. If we go to the Championship, we've got Arbroath staying up there at Kilmarnock's expense, St Johnstone returning, Livingston dropping to League One. There's a bit of a surprise, established in the top tier but now flying back down the divisions. If we go to League One, we've got Queen of the South at the top, Partick going back up, Brora Rangers in League One doing a good job as well, Stirling Albion still there in mid-table, 4th for returning down. And in the second division, we have got Montrose at the top, Cowdenbeath at the bottom, and Formartine staying up, again, on goal difference at the bottom of the table. I don't normally show it, but I did feel like I had to give you a glimpse at this one, partly because the Scottish Cup has gained a real reputation in recent years, now the 3rd biggest in the world after the German Cup and the FA Cup. But look at the winners, a few for Celtic, 1 for Queen's Park, who are now establishing themselves as a top tier side. So Rangers not really winning many trophies in this save at all, even across the Cups. If you go down to the League One, again, none in the last 5 years for them. Aberdeen get 1, Motherwell 1. Finally, the SPFL Trust Trophy, my favourite. A win for TNS, the Welsh side. Otherwise, it stayed in Scotland throughout. Alloa may be the most surprising winners. Let's go and move on to Wales because we did start our career there. Yep, it's a clean sweep of TNS. If we look at the table, they're still winning it by a fair distance. 1 defeat in 32. I wonder how they're getting on in Europe. I would imagine they're getting to the group stages still. Yeah, they got to the Europa League, so they're doing all right. Welsh football, not really on the up as a whole, but TNS doing it proud. I should mention as well from Northern Ireland that Distillery, our club from our one club save, have moved up a division. They're in the Championship now. But let's go and move on to the Champions League and have a look at the 3 European competitions. Well, there you go. An English majority, but not English dominance, because PSG and Bayern Munich have got 1 apiece. PSG finally getting that elusive Champions League. Liverpool have got 1, but City 2 in the last 3 years. And you know that Erling Haaland will be crucial to that. We go and have a look at the Europa League. That is English dominance for the last 3. We had a couple of years of French success with Marseille and Lyon back-to-back. And then Arsenal, Newcastle and Chelsea this year. just leading to loads of English sides in the Champions League. And if we go and have a look at the Europa Conference, Tottenham and Leeds managed to get a victory. How have Leeds won an FA Cup, then a Europa Conference, then within a year of getting into the Europa League relegated, and now back up to the Premier League again? It's a bizarre 5 years, isn't it? Rangers won it from Scotland, Hoffenheim from Germany, Tottenham managing to get that trophy at last, and then Valencia, of course, from Spain. A really good sign for English football, but also a few bits of success for Scotland. Rangers not able to win the Scottish Cup or the Scottish Prem, but they are able to win European trophies. I think they'll be happy with that. Let's go and look at the Super Cup. No big shocks in there. Generally speaking, bar the odd English one, the Champions League sides won it. So let's finish off with the internationals. The World Cup should be a Euro summer right now, actually, shouldn't it? If we have a look at the World Cup first. No way. No, I'm sorry. Spain beat the Republic of Ireland in the final in 2030. Is that a joke? They're 16th in the world. I mean, they've got some good players. Bazunu always becomes good in this save. They've got the young Norwich centre-half who's gone on to be very good. Adam Eder always becomes a superstar. But they haven't got a team of world beaters. Did they have a lucky draw? Did they win some big games? I've got to have a look at this. Of course, it is the 3-team groups because of the way it's set up, as FIFA had originally planned it. Yeah, it's not a bad draw, is it? I know they got through Italy in the second round, but then Morocco and USA isn't atrocious. Portugal they beat in extra time and then lost to Spain in the final. In their group, maybe Colombia's a great result, but Jamaica you'd probably argue is a 50-50. So no doubt that Ireland have been the big surprise there to get to a World Cup final. They've done something that England probably haven't in this save. Spain have now won it back-to-back though after France managed to do the same. Let's go and have a look at the European Championships, where it's definitely a slightly better story for England. 2 successive wins for them, can't compete in the World Cup, but I think if you offer that to any England fan, they'll take it, won't they? Gareth Southgate, was he in charge for the first one? I don't know. But he's certainly 2 trophies for England, and if that job comes up, we might well be interested. We'll see how this summer goes if they can make it 3 in a row. That would be a big ask though. We'll see if they can do it. Are Ireland in there? They are. That is a horrible group. Portugal, Ireland, Belgium and France. Maybe Belgium aren't what they once were. France seem to be struggling. But that is an absolute group of death when you consider what the rest look like. So I was going to say we finished on an interesting one, but I probably should look at the Nations League as well, shouldn't I? The European Nations League, 3 in a row for England, 2 in a row for France, and then 1 for Portugal. So that is what the world looks like at the minute in terms of football. Let me know down in the comments if there were any surprises for you. Which of our former clubs do you think are faring best without us? And what do you think of the English football pyramid? Any surprises I didn't notice? If not, which one has surprised you the most? If you did enjoy this bookmark though, please do chuck a thumbs up on it. Subscribe for regular content from 2 long-term stories. We'll be back tomorrow with our Build a Nation from Distillery. We're in the midst of a big transfer window and you can see the start of this latest season up in the eye above. We'll be back here in 2 days' time with a huge transfer special and hopefully a job move as well. It's 50-50 at the moment. I don't know if it's going to come. And of course, in the eye above, you can also find links to the Twitch channel, the football podcast, and the new blog post as well. And I'm also pleased to say that HelloFresh USA have extended their sponsorship by a month with both of our channels. So you can check that link out in the description if you do live in the US. But thank you very much for watching. Your support as always is appreciated. 1 decade out the way. But where will we be at the end of this 10th summer?